Here we are. We are live, my friends. I think we have officially done it and finally been able to achieve going live in the basement. Here we are. What's up, Boomer? How are you? Good to see you guys. Let's see if we can't make some things happen. I have a whole bunch to talk about. First and foremost, of course, is how difficult it was logistically to get all this stuff figured out. It was actually pretty technically hard. I found it to be very taxing, honestly, trying to get it all figured out. And then, like, when I set myself, have it like a 2:30 timeline, it's like, dang it, what am I doing? This is tough, man. This is tough. Okay, cool. So here's the thing. I want to talk about a whole bunch of other stuff that doesn't have anything to do with this podcast at all. But before I do that, I wanted to let you guys know that I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you guys sticking around this long, listening, following. Some of you guys have known me for a very long time. Some of you guys have been around me for a very long time, and some of you guys have just gotten the opportunity to get to know me. And so what I want to encourage you guys to do is, first and foremost, go to Boris'sServiceDog.com. Talks about my dog, talks about all kinds of different stuff. Service dogs, veterans awareness, that kind of stuff. And then from there, you can go to TimothyLocklear.com, and I just sort of got that up. And that's going to have a whole bunch of different podcasts, images, some design work I've done, all kinds of different links to cool different stuff. And so check those things out. It's really helpful. I appreciate it. Moving on, I'm going to just remind everybody we're on a live broadcast if you are listening later. So we have a whole bunch of comments and stuff. Boomer said it's about time. Thanks, Boomer. Appreciate the support. Todd, thumbs up. And Todd also added, do you use OBS for live broadcasting? It's free. It's easy to learn, so you should know. Hello, what's the exciting topic? Okay, cool. So check it out, Todd. Number one, I want you to send me the link on message if you could, because I'm very interested. Number two, Carol, I've got a whole bunch of stuff coming. And then number three, hi, Nancy, I'm glad you're listening. Okay, so check it out. So I have composed sort of a summary of what we're going to be talking about. And in the comments, I'm going to put it right here, right now. Okay, so there's all of it right there. And that's going to be the outline of what we're basically talking about. The first and foremost thing, I mean, the overwhelming idea is going to be today that sort of the invasion of rights, right? The invasion of what we know as our freedoms. Not necessarily invasion, but a lot of us can at times feel like, hey, why can't I do this, or why can't I do that? Or furthermore, why can't I say this, or why can't I say that? Or why is this bad, or why is that bad? Why can't, these questions often get asked by a lot of my friends who choose to use medicine that is illegal in certain states, right? They say it's dumb that, I can't come and visit my family because the medicine that keeps me alive is illegal in that state, right? I know a lot of families that are that way. A lot of friends are that way. A lot of people I know are in that position, And so it's easy to sort of piss on the government, if I can just be blunt. It's easy to do that. It's easy to just sort of tell the government to go fly a kite. It's easy to do. That's a simple thing to do. It's very common. And I've taken that approach many times, just out of frustration. It's like, this is ridiculous that this is happening. I'm so frustrated and upset. I'm just going to throw my hands in the air, right? Oftentimes that can be the response. And I'm not saying anybody's wrong with it doing that, man. That's an absolutely reasonable response. But instead, let's try to make some changes. I know. I sound all motivationally and stuff. But, I mean, for real, we should be making these changes. And so let's make these changes by first starting by addressing some inconsistencies, right? Some places where laws maybe have gone too far and maybe need to have the reins pulled back in a little bit. So this first article that came up here in my Google News feed was that in Columbia, South Carolina, there's a proposed law that is basically going to give monetary fines and community services punishment for people who get caught sagging their pants in South Carolina. Sagging their pants. Sagging their pants. Sagging their pants. Violations will be a non-criminal offense, the proposal says, but violators will be subject to fines. listen, friends, the government is now willing, at least in South Carolina, to tell people you can only wear pants this way. You can't wear them that way. On the third offense, and any thereafter, the fine would be $75 and 6 hours of community service, or both. Hey, guess what happens if you get fined for wearing pants that the state of South Carolina says you shouldn't wear, and then you don't go to the community service? Guess what happens? You go to jail, friends. I bet you if you didn't pay the fines or go to jail or go to the community service, I bet you it may even become a misdemeanor or a felony, even worse. Failure to appear and all this different kind of stuff. It just seems like it's ridiculous. It just seems like it's ridiculous. Now, personal opinions are things. Have a personal opinion. Personal opinions are great. You should have them. You should. I mean, you should, often articulate your views and your positions and your opinions. And you should take time often to do that. And I'm glad for the freedom that we have in this country to articulate our positions and opinions. I appreciate that aspect of this amazing country we live in. I like that a lot. But what I don't appreciate as much, and I don't appreciate or value as much, is this idea, this concept that we can penalize people for the way that they dress. Again, opinions are opinions. Personal views are personal views. But when we see legislation or when we see the law literally taking steps to infringe upon someone's ability to wear clothes the way they want, I think that's insane. I think that's nuts. I think that's crazy town, man. Right? That's got to be loco. And furthermore, not just that there's laws that are proposed that intend to tell people what they can and can't wear, but more so that, like, nobody is freaking out about it. I mean, like, again, I have a personal opinion, and that opinion is I don't want to look at your butt. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. But I've never had somebody, not once, come up to me and say, Tim, what's your opinion or position on sagging pants? I mean, maybe my friends have said something jovially when they saw someone sagging their pants, and then we chuckled to each other. That was it. That was the extent of it. But to think that someone would literally, and again, I want to go back to this article and read this. This is from ABC News out of South Carolina, Columbia. The bill would make it unlawful for a person to appear in public wearing, quote, his pants sagging more than 3 inches below the crest of his ileum, or the top of his hips, thus exposing skin or undergarments. And again, I want to be very clear. I'm not a fan of or in support of somebody exposing their body to somebody else and then claiming that that's like their personal choice. There's a point where it does sort of infringe on somebody at some point, right? If some dude's got a situation out, I'm probably going to say something. I might have some words to say, but see, there's a thing. We already have laws in place for that. They're called indecency laws. They're already in place for a reason. Because if a man's penis is out, then there's going to be things to say, right? There's going to be things to say. People are going to say something. If Luis all of a sudden just gets naked and starts dancing around in the street, right? Somebody's going to say like, hey, Luis, you shouldn't do that, right? If Jody all of a sudden just starts, deciding that wearing clothes that expose most of his genitalia is a good thing, I would probably say something to Jody, and so would other people. Because we have indecency laws, because we unanimously as a society have agreed. We've agreed that, hey, this is inappropriate or this is acceptable. But all of a sudden, we've now decided that opinions are identical to law. On the first offense, a person could be given a fine of up to $25. On the second, the fine would be 3 hours of community service and a $50 fine, or both. On the third offense, or any thereafter, $75 and 6 hours of community service, or both. Hey, Jody. Hey, Jody. I know I just typecasted you as the naked man in the street. Sorry, bro. I just couldn't help it. But for real, though, I mean, like, this is ridiculous. This has got to be, somebody's got to say something at some point where we're like, listen, we've got these laws that exist that keep people, quote unquote, fingers in the air safe, right? That's what happens, right? It keeps them safe, right? But at the same time, we have these other laws that exist that totally contradict any idea of freedom whatsoever, no matter which side of the political party you're freaking on. This has got to say something about someone. This guy, Representative, again, you should go to the article. It's in the description there. Or in the comments there. I just put it there. Wendell Gillard. He co-sponsored this House bill. Gillard stressed getting involved with the HB 4957 because he wants to set it as an example. Quote, "We have to lead by example," Gillard says. "It's necessary because it's not getting any better." Gillard says he first sponsored an ordinance while in city council to get young men to wear their pants properly. And that's a quote 10 years ago. He said people thought he was crazy to do such a thing. According to Gillard, the situation is getting worse than it was in 10 years. The pants now are being worn below the knees, said the former Charleston city councilman. Another reason Gillard says he co-sponsors of the bill is because he wants men to be treated the same as women. If a female was to, this is a quote from him, if a female was to go around in the same fashion, pants down by their ankles or below their waist, we would see that it is an indecent exposure, Gillard says. That's stupid. That's a stupid sentence. That sentence that Gillard just said there, the former Charleston city councilman, city guy, that's my opinion, that what he said is idiotic. Because, first of all, I've seen dudes, bros, homies, whatever you call them, I've seen them with their pants down low, sagging, and I don't often see any genitalia. I might see a butt crack, but I don't understand why there isn't a similar law in place for bikinis at pools. If we're talking about indecent exposure and that there's just too much being shown, I just feel like there's got to be some kind of consistency. And that laws like this seem to suggest that you have to have all or nothing. You can't just pick out certain groups or certain problems that you see that you ignore others but are absolutely identical. If it's a problem for dudes to have their pants around their ankles, then it's also a problem for women to have tight. That's just ignorant. How can you walk around properly that way? Louise said. One is the other, okay? I'm saying that if a woman wearing, I'm sorry, I got totally thrown off course by Lou. We're in a live broadcast if you're listening later, but Jody and Louise are going. Jody said, I actually had my genitalia at that moment you said that, so totally not slander. I appreciate you, Jody, and your pander here. Louise said that's just ignorant. How can you walk properly that way? Right, and look, it may or may not be ignorant, okay? It may or may not be. That's not the problem. That's not the issue here. There's a law, you guys. There's a law. They're going to take money from these citizens. These human beings are going to have money taken from them for the way that they're dressing. I don't understand how that's okay, right? Because if it is okay, and if it is consistent, and if this South Carolina guy, this former councilman guy, if he, I shouldn't say guy, that's bad reporting. His name is Mr. Gillard, okay, pardon me, and he's from Charleston City in South Carolina. If his proposed bill is good, then it must also be good to penalize women who sunbathe in their backyard or go out in public wearing clothes that are absolutely 100% exposing parts of their vulva. Look, it's none of my business how a woman dresses. It's none of my concern. It's not. And I'm going to raise my son to have moderate and reasonable responses to those kinds of things in public because he's a human being and I have to prepare him for those kind of things. But it's not my job to go out and try to legislate what a woman does or doesn't wear. Furthermore, what a man does or doesn't wear, as long as their primary genitalia are not exposed, I don't really care. Unless you come and ask me my opinion, then it's like, oh, well, Tim, what do you think? Well, here's what I think. I think you all should, I don't know, whatever. And, okay, Boomer just sort of said it, but maybe it is or isn't. I don't know. It does seem a little racist. I don't know, right? Now, if you go to Detroit, there's a whole lot of white dudes sagging their pants and acting thug, just as many as there are African-American or Latino people. I mean, it's a common thing. Luis Espinoza added, people make laws to seem like they are doing something productive when in reality, they have nothing better to do than try to control other people. Jody said, let's cut to the chase and say that South Carolina is pretty racist, and this sounds like just another attempt at keeping the black man in jail. I don't know, Jody. I don't know. Maybe that's right. But regardless of race, regardless of whether it's a race issue or not, okay, the fact is it's an unethical law, right? And I just wonder who's the victim in this crime here that's happening, these pants around the ankles of these persons. Gillard said here that he has seen all this is a quote, this guy, he doesn't stop. He says, all creeds and races with sagging pants and believes that what impacts one race impacts us all. It's like he's talking about the plight of the African American in the early, social justice movements. It's like he's talking about that, but yet that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about pants around the ankles. That's what he's talking about. And also, hey, let's mention something else. We're not talking about him necessarily around the ankles, although I've seen that way. I mean, these guys are just wearing their pants the way they want. Who gives a crap how they wear their pants? Let's just discuss for a moment their current living status, like how they're living. Let's talk about how we can help them, right? Or maybe talk about how we shouldn't be bothered by what they do or don't do at all. We shouldn't actually concern ourselves with what they do or don't do, because really it's actually none of our business. Unless they ask our opinion or ask for our help, or there's some way we can actually affect the situation in a better way, we should keep our fingers out of it. So there's another example of this kind of behavior, but it's not in America, okay? You guys are going to get upset at me. Hopefully not, though. I'm going to put in here this article, but I put the link in the long description here, but there's the link to the article I'm going to talk about right now. Okay, so first we were talking about how the South Carolina government and this particular gentleman here, Mr. Gillard, is fining people and attempting to use legislation to put forward his agenda, right? Boomer said that this may be a ploy to keep people's minds off the real issues. Passing a law of this kind would open a huge can of worms. Next thing, we won't be able to wear ball caps at stores and whatnot. Okay, I agree, Boomer. So in light of that kind of activity and behavior where we're telling people what they can and can't do, this Bahrain activist, so this news comes in from BBC, the Bahrain activist is jailed for 5 years over Twitter comments. Read over that for a minute. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. Like, the fact that we live in a world that is actually that's actually happening. That where people are really actually being told that they can't say certain things. Now, again, I don't think that I would be in support of somebody saying or being allowed to make threats or harass people, I guess. I just don't know. And I don't think I'm the one that makes that decision or should make that decision for that matter. I don't think I should be the one. So I don't think that that's the thing. I don't think that I should be the one that gets to decide that, and I also don't think that anybody else should get to decide that either. Boomer added, devil's advocate, the inner city neighborhoods would most likely be a lot cleaner because of all the community service. Okay, yeah. But that wouldn't make the law any more ethical, Boomer. That wouldn't. And honestly, the issue is not a matter of should the law, the discussion should not go as far as should that law be passed or not. That shouldn't go that far. It's why should the law exist? Why should that law exist? The law that says you should get fined or go to jail or have to do community service if you wear your clothes a certain way that a group of men in a giant building all equally decided is the best thing for everybody to do. That's Orwellian lunatic 1984 crazy stuff, man. And I'm not down with that. But we have in Bahrain, this guy here is, I'm going to try to pronounce his name, Nabil Rajab. Bahrain has sentenced a well-known right activist for 5 years in prison over his social media posts. He's a key figure. And okay, so you've got to read through the article to find out a little bit more about it and about this person particularly. But the guy basically is being touted as like a civil rights activist in essence. And he's been in and out of jail since he helped lead, this is a quote from the article, since he helped lead a pro-democracy uprising in 2011. His current 2-year sentence was handed down in July 2017 for this is a quote, for broadcasting fake news, after a court ruled that he had that he had undermined the prestige of the kingdom. He has suffered from poor health. However, this article here that I'm reading, this isn't like from 1955. This is 8 hours ago from BBC News, right? The 8 hours ago from BBC News, they said this, right? That's insane. I mean, I know that there are communist governments across the world, and there are bad leaders all over, and there's all kinds of terrible things going on, and I know that. I get that. But what I'm saying is that we live in a world where Americans think that they're freer or better because they have these laws in place. But yet when you compare the stark contrast between what former Councilman Gillard suggested to do in South Carolina and what this Bahrain activist did on Twitter, the laws that imprisoned this individual and the laws that would attempt to fine or penalize these other individuals in South Carolina, these two things are equally foolish for, I believe, very similar reasons. Very similar reasons. They're both a necessary infringement on the inalienable rights of a human being. That's exactly what it is. Robert added, the social media crackdown has only just begun. Oh, I know it, man, and it's crazy. And the more you look at it, the more it's there. It's kind of like that. It's like the first time that you have natural medicine, then you sort of can look at life in a different way. You can actually look at life in a way that's like more vibrant and beautiful. And you recognize things in a new way. Well, similarly, when you are on social media and you're just pounding away, doing the normal stuff, sharing what everybody else shares, liking what everybody else likes, doing the normal stuff, before you know it, you've had cultivation happening around you where people, where some things have been removed or blocked, or your news feed has changed and all these things. I've heard people complain about it all the time. How come I'm not seeing this anymore or that? It's just all changes in algorithms and experiments. We don't have any more freedoms than they do in Bahrain. But we do. We have just different freedoms, right? We have the ability to say what I'm saying right now, and I don't have to go to, be in fear of going to jail. I don't fear that right now. I don't. But at the same time, there are people I know who do live in fear every day of that. They live in fear of speaking out because they'll be penalized or they'll be judged, or the cult that they're involved with won't accept well what they've said, right? This is just crazy. The more you guys should for sure please go check out the article. There's some content in here that's pretty amazing. Some of the tweets around this guy that's being called the rights defender in Bahrain, or Bahrain. It's just everybody in the whole Twitter world is saying this is an egregious, absolute atrocity. Something needs done. But this dude's still sitting in jail because of Twitter. Man, that's tough, dude. That's a tough life. That's a tough thing. So maybe the next time you guys compose a post or a tweet, maybe not, maybe not now, and maybe not you, but maybe somebody should think about the cost. Think about, the stupid crap that you share. Think about that. And then, and me too. And think about why it's valid or important. And if I might go to jail for what I said on Facebook, I wonder if I'd be as flippant about what I say. You know what I mean? I wonder if I would be as just as placé, who cares? It doesn't matter. I can just, I can just do whatever I want. I can go wherever I want. I can say whatever I want. It's okay. And I don't live in fear of being penalized. I don't feel like I'm going to go to jail if I say that the government is terrible, or if I say that they release fake news, or if I say that they're doing things that are hurting Americans or hurting veterans, or that they're behaving in inconsistent ways, right? I can say these things freely without any fear of repercussion from my government at all. But that's not the same for this dude here. This dude here is actually in jail for what he's said and done on Facebook and Instagram, on Twitter. That's crazy right there. That's pretty loco that we're looking at that's actually happening. So I guess the application, in my opinion, from that to how I live my life here, right? Because I just talked about how we shouldn't be so wrapped up and worried so much about the way these people are dressing or not dressing. If they're sagging their pants, who gives a crap, dude? It doesn't matter to you, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't matter to you. It should not matter to you, not one bit. But it does, and I think the reason it does is mostly because people are selfish. They think more about themselves than they do other people, and they oftentimes will allow that selfishness to overwhelm what many people call their couth, or their sort of their ability to think rationally, right? And I just feel like we at some point are going to, at some point we've got to hold each other responsible, right? We've got to hold each other responsible. We've got to do something to tell the society that we live in, to tell the culture that we live in, that this isn't normal behavior, that these things over here that you see, that you're seeing, this stuff here, this isn't normal, right? These other people that are behaving badly and poorly, this doesn't represent my country or what I believe in freedom is in America is. And so just because they're doing it, it doesn't mean that it represents all of me or what I believe. These views do not necessarily represent those, is what I mean. And so I just think it's really important that we not lose sight, It's really easy to just get sort of wrapped up in what we're talking about on our Facebook and what we're sharing and what our news feed is. Well, we've got these things happening around us that should cause a little bit of attention, just a little bit of attention, in my opinion. So I want to move on just briefly, but it's totally worth it. I'm gonna post a link in here. It's to a book. Here's the link right here. Bingo, bango, bongo. There it is. It's in the newsfeed comment area section. It's a killer book. It's an amazing book. The author is Leonard Sheff and Susan Edmonston. The name of the book is The Cow in the Parking Lot, A Zen Approach to Overcoming Anger. A Zen Approach to Overcoming Anger. It's one of my favorite books. It's pretty amazing. It has a lot of different ideas that help us better understand why we do what we do, why we say what we say, how we say it, to whom we say it to, the reasons we say it. It gives you an ability to sort of think around, right? That mindfulness ability, it's amazing, right? It's amazing. And the ability for you to just sort of know what's going on and know that you don't have to freak out about it and know that it's okay. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. So I'm going to copy in the in this comment here. I'm going to copy in the description of the book so you guys can take a look at it and read it when you get time. There it is. Road rage, domestic violence, professionally angry TV and radio commentators. We're in a society that is swimming in anger, always about to snap. Leonard Sheff, a trial attorney, once used anger to fuel his court persona until he came to realize just how poisonous anger is. That and his intense study of Buddhism and meditation changed him. His transformation can be summarized in a simple parable. Imagine you are circling a crowded parking lot when, just as you spot a space, another driver races ahead and takes it. Easy to imagine the rage, but now imagine that instead of another driver, a cow has lumbered into that parking space and settled down. The anger dissolves into amusement, and what really changed you, was it you or was it your perspective? That's the idea. This cow is coming to sit in this parking space that you were yourself going to park. So instead of some jerk coming in and swooping it in, you are now the recipient of a little bit of cow karma. So again, continuing on in this quote here, he says, using simple Buddhist principles, applying them in a way that is easy for non-Buddhists to understand and put into practice, Sheff and Edmonston have created an interactive book that helps readers change perspective step by step so that they can replace the anger in their lives with a newfound happiness. Based on the successful anger management program Sheff created, The Cow in the Parking Lot shows how anger is based in unmet demands and introduces the four most common types: important and reasonable, you want love from your partner; reasonable but unimportant, you didn't get that seat in the restaurant window; or irrational, you want respect from a stranger; and the impossible, you want someone to fix everything wrong in your life. See how this goes just like deeper and deeper? It's pretty amazing. And these books, along with a couple others, like the Tao of Pooh, the Tao of Piglets, these kinds of things have really helped a lot with how I see things, with how I look at the problems that I face each day. And a lot of times, a lot of times I'm wrong. Usually my ego and my pride gets in the way, and because of that, I allow overwhelming circumstances to get the best of me. And so I know now that I don't have to do that. I know now that anger is a choice and a response. And I know now that above all and beyond, I don't have to behave in a way that hurts other people or that reacts to every situation that I see. I don't have to do that. It's a choice, right? And so the more I study the idea of mindfulness as a practice, the more I'm intrigued by the freedom of being, for the first time, in control, right? For the first time, like, I'm in the driver's seat of my, not just my mental health care, but my treatment and therapy overall, right? Like, I'm for the first time in a place where I'm not being controlled by my symptoms. Now, that to be clear, is not always the case. Sometimes I don't have the opportunity to, to be able to actually use the mindfulness techniques that work. Sometimes I am lazy. Sometimes I let my symptoms get the best of me. And that's most of the time, usually because I'm hungry, angry, lonely, tired. That's usually it. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And it's the acronym. It's HALT, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Because if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, I guarantee you I will be much more susceptible to forgetting these problems, these things going on, these issues. And because I forget that they're there, because I forget I have these symptoms, a lot of times I just let them get the best of me. I let them overwhelm me and push and push and push. And so these books are essential. These are essential books because the principles within them are truly what makes them amazing. Like, the principles here that are put forth in these books are what makes the difference between losing your mind or keeping it cool and being chill. Sometimes it can be that, the difference between life or death in that sense. Not necessarily in that sense, but in the sense that freaking out means I have to now, leave a store or something because I lost my temper, I behaved poorly, or I said something I shouldn't. I have to go back and say I'm sorry. All these things. It's like I have to undo all the crap I did. 5 steps forward, 10 steps back, 8 steps forward, 2 steps back. That's how it goes. But understanding that I absolutely need the peace that comes from mindfulness gives me the freedom to better understand how I can help not just myself, but other people. Like, there's so many other veterans I know who are in the situations that can be helped with just a little bit of mindfulness, just a little bit of focused intent, A lot of people I know are like that. A lot of people I interact with on a daily basis could benefit in some way or other from mindfulness techniques, from the idea that you're in the driver's seat, you're in control, you're not subject to other people necessarily. You're not necessarily required to abide by what other people suggest you do. You're not. You don't have to. And it's not about, you guys hear me talk a lot about veterans, but it's not about veterans versus non-veterans. It's not. It's not about doing the things that everybody says is the right thing to do. Because if I did all the things that everybody said was the right thing to do, I would still be taking the pills that I was taking that were killing me. I'd still be fat as a boat, a big boat, not a small boat, like a large boat, And I would probably still be very ill. And I think that a large amount of my therapy and treatment that I've been getting would not have happened because I would have been way too egotistical and not well. Like, I wouldn't be well enough to actually manage what I've managed thus far. I I don't think that I would be able to. I don't. So it's not about like, because I identify personally as someone who believes in Jesus. I'm a Christian, right? But how that applies, how that works out is different. But this Buddhist idea, this Buddhist concept is definitely a challenge to that idea. But the principles are what I was interested in. I got so much from them. I got so much from the ideas that I don't have to be angry any longer. I don't have to get wrapped up in what they call buttons. So from that link I sent there, Chef and Edmondson show how once we identify our real unmet demands, we can dissolve the anger. How? And once we understand our buttons, we can change what happens when they're pushed. He shows how to laugh at ourselves, and powerful early step in changing angry behavior. By the end, as the reader continues to observe and fill in the exercises, honestly, it won't matter what takes the parking space. Only you can make yourself angry. Wow. And the way these guys talk about anger, it's amazing. They talk about it like a redneck talks about terrorists. You know, I mean, for real, they mean it. They get into it, and it's awesome. It's amazing. So I'm going to wrap this all up with the final idea, final concept here. We are working at creating, and I know you guys have noticed, so I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to unpin that comment, and I'm going to put my URL in here. Just 1 second. There it goes. Bingo, bango, bongo. It's in. It's there. So that URL is where all my podcasts are going to be going. It's where all the content that I've been creating. When you guys see these graphics and memes, I'm making most of this stuff here. So if you guys like it or hate it, let me know. If there's something that I could make for you guys, please let me know. We're in the process. It's in its infant stages of creating a benevolence fund for veterans locally to gain access to safe supplements that aren't prescriptions, and gas money to get to therapy and treatments and all that kind of stuff. So we want to keep helping veterans, and we're going to be introducing a way for folks. I think we're going to be looking at Patreon, but I think we're looking at some folks being able to, give monthly amounts and have access to some of these better produced podcasts that we have, and content and videos, and we have some partners that I think would be willing to give us some materials that we could give away as a means of saying thank you for supporting the veterans in Omaha. As many of you know, I'm a graphic designer, and I'm the sort of the communications director for Veterans for Natural Rights, based out of Divide, Colorado, which is a nonprofit organization that's aiming to help veterans gain safe access to legal medicine, to encourage positive legislation with veterans in mind, and to inform and educate not just veterans, but the country, that veterans matter, that vets do matter, whether it's service dogs, natural medicine, homeopathic care, managing the VA system, legislation, appealing for more natural right legislation, that kind of stuff. Those are all things that we would be interested in doing. And that's something we're also doing here in Omaha. My buddy Nick Evans, I'll mention him right here. I know he's at work. Sorry you are at work, bro. Okay, cool. There we go. I mentioned Nick Evans there in the comments. But he's one of the ones that's doing a lot of work here in Omaha. I'm obviously helping him, and we're working together to do that. But, when my family and I eventually get on the road and get to RVing like we want to, we know that there will need to be people here on the ground doing the work that we've been doing to help veterans, to help families, to help educate. There's an entire service dog community in this area. There's an entire veteran community in this area, and a lot of folks do a lot of things to help a lot of veterans. But we want to keep that work up. We want to keep making it happen as much as we can. So timothylocklear.com. That's just all the podcasts and videos and YouTubes and all that stuff. But more importantly than that, veteransfornaturalrights.org is a website that's going to be linked to the national work that I was just talking about, the nonprofit organization Veterans for Natural Rights. Visit also boristheservicedog.com, finding out about my big dumb black dog that's laying on the ground sleeping like a lazy bum. He keeps me alive. I have all kinds of crazy stuff that goes on that he helps me with. More information about that, you can message me or visit the website. That being said, this weekend, I'm going to go find the event link right now, unless Nick can find it if he's listening. I know he's at work. He may not be able to hear this right now. But I'm going to go try to find that event right now and get the link. I should have had it up sooner. But we're having a hike this week, and we would very much like it if you would consider joining us. We are going to be having it in Bellevue at Swanson Park, and if I can find the event, then I'll share it here as soon as I get it. The idea behind these hikes is that when you get together with people who, there it is, I found it, who are like-minded in some degree, who agree on some level that, hey, I'm a veteran, and hey, I matter, etc., whatever. Okay, here goes the, there's the event link right now. So that's coming up on this Saturday at 11 a.m. When you get a bunch of people together that are like-minded, what they can do is amazing. What can happen. It's absolutely amazing. The sparks that can fly, the camaraderie, just the therapy. It's all amazing, and it's all absolutely 100% impossible to do unless it's organic. Unless it's organic, it won't work. And so you've got to find a way to make it organic, and the only way to truly do that is by making these kinds of things happen, making these kinds of hikes happen. And we have seen dudes who have, been to the point where they feel like maybe I'm ready to not live anymore, right? Maybe I don't want to be alive anymore, or maybe I don't want to do these things that we're doing with this life here anymore, or they're falling off the wagon proverbially. These guys, a lot of them are coming on these hikes and seeing big changes, right? And it's not so much about the hike itself. It's about the camaraderie, knowing that there's a thing that I have to do that I'm doing, and knowing that it's going to work. Knowing that everything's just, for this hike at least, it's going to be all right. Everything's, going to be okay for this here. And it's like, that simple fact can sometimes sort of undo whatever funk it was in your head that was causing you to think that ending your life was good. It's amazing. I mean, it's been proven that physical activity, especially with other people, is proven to do all sorts of crazy stuff for people's mind and biology and all kinds of things. So it's proven in that regard. And I've sent out links about these kinds of things before, and it's not, by any means, it's not new news. People know this stuff. But what a lot of people don't know is that there's so many of these veterans every day that are fighting with this stuff that don't have the benefit of what I'm talking about. Natural medicine, all these things, resources that are going to help get people the help that they need, right? It's going to help save people's lives so that they're not stuck trying to figure out how to do life alone. Because that's, unfortunately, a lot of times what they're left with is just doing life alone. So we want to stop that. We want to keep that from happening. And I think the best way we can do that is some of these hikes. So if you are available and free, please join us. I would appreciate it. This has been a live broadcast. Please visit all the websites that I've brought to you, that I've sent to you. Please come on Saturday. It's an awesome hike. It's going to be freezing cold and amazing. Listen, don't pass laws that tell people they can't wear their clothes a certain way unless it's showing their genitalia. And don't put people in jail for posting stuff on Twitter. Also, don't freak out. Just remember that mindfulness is essential. It is an essential thing. You need it in life. It'll change your life the more you adopt it. The principles in that book, The Cow in the Parking Lot, have helped my family and I, helped my wife and I, and helped an innumerable amount of my friends. I appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. Last but not least, I'm going to share a link to the YouTube channel, which a lot of you guys have been following. And if you go to timothylocklear.com, you can click on the podcast button, and the podcast button will take you straight to the YouTube channel of yours truly, which contains most of the backlogged podcasts and other content that we've created. Hey, Nick, you're awesome. Appreciate you tuning. You're saying words because I know you're busy and at work and stuff. But there's the absolutely, man. Appreciate it. There's a link to the YouTube. This is not all self-serving. This isn't about promotion of Tim, okay? It's not. And I've done some checks and balances, and I've asked some homies. I've made sure. I was like, dude, listen, are you sure it's good to say this? Does this sound prideful or cocky or self-promoting? And da-da-da? And he says, no, it's not. So eventually we're going to get a Patreon up. Hopefully we'll have a way for you guys to be able to pledge resources to help veterans in the metro area get access to safe things that can help their lives be better. Thank you guys so much. You're beautiful. I'm going to end the broadcast for today, and hopefully you'll hear from us tonight, because tonight Nick and me and a whole bunch of other homies are going to get together at a coffee shop, and we're going to do a broadcast from Veterans for Natural Rights Omaha. Check it out, guys.